Hey everybody, this is Patrick from Sasquatch in the Wild. So, so this happened. This day is a continuation. So there's 3 videos prior to this one. I'm gonna add in a couple other little videos to talk about things at the end of all this. And they'll be separate videos. So, um, those will probably come out sometime between the Sunday or sometime between tomorrow morning and next Sunday. I'm going to throw in a bunch of little videos. But there will be another video on Wednesday, which will be the last weird event that happens. And that event happens on or in the campsite at night. And it's kind of funny, actually. So this is the Saturday before that Sunday. This would be September 6th of 2015. So I'm getting up. I'm getting ready to head up into the mountain. One other thing before I talk about this, I'm going to try to link the other videos that are attached to this. If I can't, I'll put the pictures up above where the fingers are pointing. Okay, so now let's get to the story. So I'm getting up and I'm getting prepared for my hike up to the castle. And Riley kind of gets up and I kind of wake him up as well. I kind of get him all raveled up a little bit. So I get dressed and I take Riley out for a quick walk, get him back inside the tent, give him some water and stuff. And so he gets nestled back. Darla looks at me and says, "So are you going on your hike?" And I said, "Yes." "Are you taking Riley?" I said, "No, it's not designed for dogs." So she said, "Okay." I said, "He's staying in. Besides, it's too dark and I don't want to run into a situation where I can't see what's happening." She said, "That's fine." "Are you taking your cell phone?" And so I looked at the cell phone and I said, "No." And she goes, "Why?" I said, "Because I have like one line of life left in the cell phone. I'm not taking it." Okay. So she said, "Okay, have fun on your hike." I said, "Yep." So I left Riley there and I grabbed my camera and decided that it's time to go. So I zip them all in so they're secured. I start my hike. I start going out onto the frontage road and I'm walking along and I start to hear a second set of steps going on. And at first I thought it was somebody behind me. So I turned around and looked, expecting to see somebody there, and I saw nobody. Uh, it's still kind of dark, but you can make out shadows and stuff. I can see the trees fine here and there. Distance wise, I can't. I know there's a berm to my right, and I was kind of thinking that maybe the sound was coming from up on the berm. And there's RVs are parked up on the berm versus down in the lower areas. It's mostly for tents and like pop up camper type deals. So those things are kind of sporadic in the area. So I started walking. I just said, heck with it. Started walking on down, and I was taking pictures of the lake and various other things as I was walking down through. Excuse me. So I started to hear footsteps again, and I was like, "What is that?" And so I'd stop and I'd look, and really the sound is coming from up on the berm. And I started saying, "Hey, look, if you want to come and walk with me, that's fine. I'd love the company. If it's who I think it is, you can come down. I've already seen you. It's not like it's a big deal or anything for me." And I heard nothing. It was just silent. But so I started walking along, and I would stop, take a picture, and I could hear chick, 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 and then stop. And I was like, "Oh, this is so annoying." So I'll take more pictures with my camera, keep going, and the sun is beginning to crest just a little bit, and the sky is lighting up more and more. And I'm like, "Oh, this will be a nice morning." Just kept walking along, and again, I could hear this. Now, for every 2 steps I was walking, this guy was taking 1 step. So it was like 2 to 1. so here I am walking like da 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 da, and he's going da 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 da, and I'm going da 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 da, and he's taking 1 step for every 2 that I'm doing. So that kind of tells me that who I think it is walking up there is probably the guy that I saw on the day before where I had 2 different encounters with him. So just kept going. I'm getting up to a point where I can see the turn where it goes to the main parking lot. And I noticed that there's 2 crows. These crows are flying around, and they land on a branch and they look at me and they're going, "Caw, caw, 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 caw." And I'm like, okay. I said, "What do you want?" And, "Caw, caw, 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 caw." And they were just like chattering. I'm like, okay, I don't speak crow. So I went right back at them. And their heads were turning, and they were turning and turning. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they're listening to me. That's very intriguing. I've had a cockatiel, and she would do the same thing when I'd say something to her. She would listen. So I started to think about this for a little bit, and I'll get back into that later. So I just kind of wandered on, and I eventually, when I took the turn, I said, "You guys aren't coming with me?" Because they were following me, off and on down this road, and they stopped at this one branch right at the curve, and I ended up taking a couple pictures of them. I said, "Okay, I'll remember you two." And I just started walking along, but I realized that the guy or gal who was following me quit after the last RV. So that means where I was positioned, and they were probably positioned way back here, they had to go all the way around to try to catch where I'm about to go. So as I'm walking up through, I see a tent to my left, and they were right at the water's edge. And as I'm walking up, there was, at the time, there was a really long trail that went off to the left, and it went all the way down to some trees. And there's like another campsite somewhere way down to my left. No idea. I didn't know that the campsite was down there, but I saw a trail, and it led to a couple of the forests that were down there. And as I'm walking by, I hear whoop, 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 long drawn out whoops, and there was a whole bunch. And I was like, just looking at it going, what the hell? And these things were just going off like crazy. And I was like, it's like almost like an alarm or almost like a police vehicle, but there's no police vehicles out there. There's nothing out there. No. There's just not, I would have heard all kinds of sirens. But the whoops that were coming out really sounded like primates. Sounded like some form of primate doing these vocals. And I was like, what is this, an ape pavilion? I was like, this is the weirdest thing. And I'm just looking straight down there going, that's crazy. And then it just kind of died out, and I was like, that's weird. By this time, the sun has come up, and it's beginning to flood the area with light, and you could feel the warmth coming in. And I just kept walking. So I was walking up towards there's a Boy Scout camp. That as you're walking up, it's the Boy Scout camp is to the right, and then the trailhead kind of goes underneath these trees. And as I'm walking through all that stuff, the ground is really wet because of the streams. There's a stream that kind of comes through and it bleeds out into that area. So the ground is kind of wet here and there. Wet gravel, wet, like muddy, slushy stuff. And I was like, okay. So I start walking by, and there's these giant boulders that are to my direct right. And they're quite large. They're almost like 2 stories tall. There's, I think, 3, maybe 4 of these things placed. And I couldn't figure out how they actually got there unless this was just a natural formation. But out of nowhere, there was someone up on one of the boulders, because I heard this, wah! And it scared the hell out of me. But I was like, wah! And this call went on for about 45 seconds. I can't yell for 45 seconds, let alone hold my breath for that long. And this individual was just, and I was like, good God, what the hell's wrong with you? While he was yelling, I'm yelling back at him. And finally he went, oh, and he stopped. And I was like, what the hell? And I could hear him walking around on that boulder. And it's like, how the hell do you get up there? Because I was looking for trees that I could climb to get up there. I couldn't find it. I didn't see any. So I started to walk further on, and I was like, you can stop. You don't need to follow me no more. So I got to where the staircases are. And the stairs, I kid you not, these stairs are so tall, it's sick. So if you're into doing the step, the step machines and stuff, this thing will destroy you because these steps feel like they're about 2 feet in height, which makes no sense for a human being to make steps leading up to the waterfall trail, or up to where the waterfall trail bumps into this. I went down these things the day before, and I forgot all about talking about these things, but these things are super tall, and I was like, "What the hell?" And so I climbing up them was a lot harder than going down them, but I went all the way up these things, and I crossed over the bridge that where the water would be flowing from the waterfall, and you have to find your way up through. So I started going up higher and higher and higher, and I'd turn around and I'd take random photographs here and there of the lake and the scenery around it. And I get to this one area, and I stop for a little bit, and I'm looking across, and I can see a tree way off in the distance, and looks like I'm seeing a person holding onto the tree. And I was like, what is that? So I took my camera and I started to zoom in to just kind of watch to see what this was. And it looked like a hairy individual holding onto this tree. And so here I am with my camera watching this. And I had it on video mode just so I could just physically watch it. And I said, man, I really wish you would turn. And like on cue, I don't know if they heard me or not, but they dropped one arm down, turned and looks, right at me. And I'm like, what the hell? And through the lens, I can see. But what I'm seeing, even though it's smiling at me, I'm seeing a female. Because when she dropped her arm, I saw a breast. I was like, yeah, you're not a guy. There's no way you're a guy. No, not with that. No, that's not happening. So then she pulls her arm back up and she's watching. Now, there's two things happening. Where she's at and from where I'm at, there is an open space. And it goes all the way down to the lake. You can hear music being played. Someone's playing like the Beach Boys. But further off, there's a gun range that's out there. And every time that they would fire a round, that female would flinch. She would go, ooh, like hear bang. Then, she'd be still like bang. And I was watching this play out. I was like, what the hell? And every time I would try to videotape it, the camera would reset and they would put her way back in the distance. So I was like, no. And so I was like, I will take pictures of her, if hopefully she's still here when I come back. So I decided I want to get over to where she's at. I started climbing higher and higher and higher, got all the way, I started getting up close to where I think the top is, and I started hearing people talking. And I was like, oh, there's people up here already. That's crazy. Well, I also heard somebody way up on the castle. They were rappelling, and they were talking back and forth. There was something being said, and out of nowhere, I hear, we need to get off this mountain fast. Let's hurry up. Let's go. First person I see is a dog, and I was like, what? I thought dogs weren't allowed up here. And I was greeted by the dog. The dog gave me a couple of kisses. I petted him, and then I saw the owners. I said, is this your dog? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, nice dog. I said, I thought dogs weren't up here, or supposed to be up here. And I said, no, they can be up here. They just don't have great footing. And they said, but you need to get off the mountain. I was like, why? And they said, you'll find out real fast. They wouldn't tell me. So I went all the way up. I got to a point, and I looked around. And I was like, I don't know what the big deal was. Well, the guy on the mountain dropped all the way down at that point, and he was yelling up for the next person to hurry up and get down. And that person went real quick, and I was like, oh my God, I had never seen anybody rappel that fast. And they went straight down, got done. They were grabbing their gear, and they were heading my direction. And I turned back to look for the girl see if I could see her on the log, and I didn't see her. I was like, oh crap, she's gone? That's not right. So they come running up, they see me, and they said, you need to get off the mountain. I was like, what's the big deal? And why do I have to get off the mountain? I'm thinking there must be a bears or something up there. And they said, you'll see it. It's coming. And I was like, you see that rock over there? And I said, yeah, go walk around, look. And I'm like, okay. And so I go walking back to where that rock is. And I look back there and I see this black thunderhead. And I'm like, oh crap. Second time I've seen a black thunderhead. So I was like, oh no. And this thunderhead is coming straight towards us. And I'm like, oh crap. And there's lightning dropping, and you see flashes of the lightning, and you hear the thundering boom now. I'm like, oh crap. So I turn around and I start running back. I hit the trailhead as fast as I could get it, and I started going down. And I get to the point where I thought the girl was, and I look, and it looks like I see her standing there, right, still holding on to the tree. I'm like, huh, what? That doesn't make any sense. So I took my camera and I took a series of photographs. Bang, bang, bang. I took one shot, zoomed out, another shot, kind of zoomed in, next shot, zoomed in, next shot, zoomed in, next shot, pretty close. I'm like, okay, that's good enough for me. So I start going down. But as I'm going down, I hear a sound behind me, like something's turned and run. I'm like, what the hell? And it sounded like a child, like a little kid was running. And I'm like, that didn't make sense. So I turn around and I walk back around. There's like a weird rock. I'll draw a picture of this, but from where I was at, there's an area for me to go around, and I stopped and I looked, and I can still see the thunderhead coming. And I'm like, oh my God. But there was a narrow path, and it's only like a foot wide. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go down that. I want to walk this. But the problem is, this side has a rock face, goes flat. This side over here, there's nothing, and it drops off like 100 feet. I was like, yeah, that would stink. And so I just turned around and said, I'll remember this. So I turned and I ran back down. I was jumping over boulders and, quickly scurrying down. I got to a point where I was seeing flashes of light, and bang, it was happening. I'm like, oh crap. And so I would have to stop, cover my eyes, and crouch down as much as I could, but there's nowhere to hide because there's trees everywhere. If a tree gets hit, I'm going to get electrocuted. I finally make my way down, and at that moment, the cloud just passes right over. I'm like, oh my God. And I took a series of photographs on the way out. So I ended up walking all the way back around and show back up at the campsite. By this time, it was, I think, about noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And they looked at me and said, well, what was it like? And I said, well, she goes, did you see things? I said, yeah, I took photographs off and on when I was moving up and down the mountain. But did you guys see that thunderhead? And they said, yeah, it was scary. I said, well, I was up on the mountain when that sucker was going off. They were like, are you serious? And I said, yeah, there was lightning flying everywhere. And I was like looking for cover, and there wasn't any. So I saw caves in some photographs that I had taken. And I'll show you some pictures that I got. But I said, I thought I saw something. I'm pretty sure what I saw. And she goes, you think you saw another Bigfoot? And I said, yes. And she said, Darla said, so what was he like? I said, it wasn't a he. It was a she. And she goes, how do you know? I said, I saw a breast. And she's like, oh, well. I said, I know. It was weird. So that day basically that was done for that whole weird excursion. The very next video I talk about will be starting at midnight and what happens that morning, because it's insane. Talk to you later. I hope you're enjoying the journey.